Indian epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata hold timeless relevance even in today's rapidly evolving world. These texts, filled with the complex characters, profound moral dilemmas, and rich philosophical discourses, offer lessons that transcends eras. With a pride of having a galaxy of empowered people today in the Orange City, a very good evening to one and all. This is Pravartan Tatte, delighted and privileged to welcome you all to this sixth edition of Orange City Literature Festival organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation powered by Raisoni Education. Indian epics remain more than mere stories. They are repositories of wisdom that continue to shape cultural, moral, and philosophical thought. Their adaptability ensures they remain relevant, providing a moral compass in today's complex world. So let us now explore the relevance in this session, ancient epics, new stories, how our myths shape us today, with Nilesh Oak, Ami Ganatra, and Kavita Kane in conversation with Dr. Abhishek and Singh. Volunteer at the back. Please close the door. Please close the door. Today we have with us as a first speaker Mr. Nilesh Oak. Mr. Nilesh Nilkant Oak is an author, original researcher, GAIA and TEDx speaker, UAAICT distinguished alumnus, and sought after keynote speaker. He holds a BS and MS in chemical engineering and an executive MBA. He has published 3 revolutionary books. 1. When did the Mahabharata war happen? 2nd, the historic Rama. 3rd, Bhishma Nirvana. His books have been and are being translated into various other languages. He travels extensively around the world, speaking to university and college students and to mainstream audiences. His work has inspired novels, novelettes, documentaries, and movies. He is a researcher and adjunct faculty at the Institute of Advanced Science, Dartmouth, Massachusetts, USA. Ami Ganatra, welcome sir. Ami Ganatra is an alumna of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, a management professional. She is also a devout yoga practitioner, a certified yoga instructor, and a student of Sanskrit and Indian knowledge system. Her books, Mahabharata Unraveled and the new one, Ramayana Unraveled, are not retelling or imaginations, but an attempt to go back to the original Itihasa and present the story, learnings and nuances for what they are, and make the epics accessible to all. Welcome, ma'am. Kavita Kane is a best-selling author of 8 novels, and today she is considered a revolutionary force in Indian writing, mainly because she has brought in feminism in where it is most needed, and that is mythology. All her 8 novels are based on lesser-known women in Indian mythology: Karna's wife, Sita's sister, 5 others, and the latest, Tara's Truce. Her word journey began as a journalist with a twin postgrad degree in English literature and mass communication and journalism from the University of Pune. With a career over 2 decades in Magna Publishing and DNA, she eventually quit her job as assistant editor of Times of India to devote herself as a full-time author. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Abhishek Singh, this session's moderator, is faculty in Business Analytics and Information Technology area at IMT Nagpur. In between, he had a brief spell of 1.5 years as a faculty at IIT Jodhpur. Dr. Singh is a fellow of Deutsche Akademische Austausch Dienst, DAAD, German Academic Exchange Service, and has worked as a visiting scholar at Ludwig Maximilian University at Munich in Germany. Dr. Singh holds a PhD in Information Security Management. Dr. Singh is a certified design thinking professional. Other than teaching and research, his interest lies in poetry, literature, and Indian mythology. Before starting the session, I would like to request all the august audience sitting here to kindly switch off their phones or silent their phones so that we can have a listening feast here. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I request the session's guests to occupy their seats on the stage. And also hand over the mic to the moderator.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. It is good to see public here, and it is also good to see that volunteers have asked those who are not interested to leave, so that we have a very genuine audience here who are interested to know about themselves, about the Indian epics, mythology, and through which we want to explore the current times in which we live. How does it impact ourselves? How does the impact of the ancient epics that we have is shaping the current reality of our times in which we live? And we have very impressive and revered speakers here. They need no introduction, although we have good introduction for all of them. The challenge that I am going to face as a moderator, and let me confess it at the very beginning, that given the short span of time, 40 minutes, how to engage and get the knowledge from these three standing tall pillars in Indian mythology and ancient epics. We will try to do that. So what we are going to do here is 30-35 minutes around, we will have our discussion on the given topic, and then we will open the floor to the audience for any questions. So if you have any questions in between, please keep it with you. We will take it towards the end of it. Okay, so that is how we are going to go about it. The first thing that comes to my mind when we say epics are the mythology. So is it really a myth that we are dealing with? Many times this question comes that, is it really that happened in the past? And that is what we are going to listen through many stories that has been coming in the past, or the text or the ancient literature that we have. So how to balance this myth versus reality debate that is ever existed and that is still in the minds of the people. So I want to take everyone's views here. Is it a myth, or is it something that happened really and then it is being told, retold for generations that we have seen? So I'll start with my left, Kavita ma'am, and what is your view on that?
Good evening, everyone. And I think coming to your question, I think there is a myth about the word mythology in the first place, because I think myth, of course, mythology comes from the word myth, but I think myth has been sort of distorted in today's time. Myth has almost got defined as a fairy tale. I think that's not what it actually is. Mythology is the retelling, the telling of stories. It started off with simple storytelling, and that entire legacy of storytelling through the centuries, it is collated stories, collated literature. It is collated, as I said, Ramayana and the Mahabharata, they are basically epics. They are long poems. So I think these stories have been accumulated, collated, and are still living in today's time. And I think mythology would be a wrong word to describe it. I still believe to call it ancient texts and the epics, I would call that. But the word mythology has been completely distorted. I think it is sort of misunderstood, like the word feminism. So I always have a double challenge to try to deconstruct feminism and mythology here. So mythology is not myth, but which we are, with the modern definition which we have. It's definitely not a fairy tale. It's not a fable. It is not a lesson in moral science. It is something much more deep. It has a certain philosophical significance. It has a psychological impact. The very fact that we are familiar with these stories centuries down, I think shows the timelessness of these stories. So I think dismissing it as a myth is very, very unfair. So
Very well. And yes, we will come to the discussion of the feminism and how it is misunderstood many a times. Before going that, let me come to Nilesh Oak, sir. As a scientific chronologer, when we see the Ramayana, Mahabharata, when it happened, how do you scientifically see it, and how do you see that, as ma'am has said, that myth is not, mythology and myth, they are not same. So as a scientific chronologer, how do you explain this? How do you help us understand that what is the chronology of the events, are the sequences of these epics, are the events that has happened in the past? How it is itihasa? How do you explain this?
Namaskar, everyone. The 2 points, just to take up from what she said, and to support that and also slightly distinguish, are these two. For example, what she said is correct. The mythology, by its original meaning, in the word was coined, it didn't necessarily mean it's like a false thing or just a fable. Unfortunately, the way currently it exists, especially in the Indian context and an Indian psyche, for whatever reason, mythology means basically just a story. It has nothing to do with a history or historical thing. Since that is the widespread understanding, my suggestion, my conviction, and almost my, I would say, guys, it's not even a discussion for debate. Just drop the word mythology if you are discussing in the context of itihasa text of India, such as Ramayana and Mahabharata. So that's number one. Because intellectually and academically we can talk as much as myth and mythology, but that doesn't work, because when people ask me, but isn't it a mythology? And then they actually mean only a myth, in the sense it's not a true story. The second aspect that Kavita ji talked about is that they have accumulated over time. Yes, that's just the nature of it. There are multiple recensions of Mahabharata. In fact, the current version we have 4. Okay, and Ramayana also you can see that. Uttar Ramayana is like appendix. Harivamsha is appendix to Mahabharata. However, based on my scientific research, to coming to your point, I can assert, it's not opinion. This is something can be objectively tested by anyone. I assert that the accumulation has happened over a limited time. That's not to say there are no interpolations in later times and the translation error, transposition error, transliteration errors, copying errors, and so on. But the core matter of both Valmiki Ramayana as well as Mahabharata has basically added to it, and I'm saying this with evidence to back it up, basically added within the 100, 200, 300, 400 years of the actual historical events. Anything else may be just interpolation, but those are minor interpolations. In fact, by definition, interpolations means it's an exceptional thing and not the mainstream narration. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting, sir. Ami, coming to you, as Nilesh sir has said, keep telling, retelling, and over the period it has been accumulated knowledge. And many times when stories are retold, certain things have been taken out, certain things have been added, extrapolated, right, to make it more relevant, to make it at times more spicy, or to tailor it to the audience's need, and so on and so forth. From your work, unraveling Mahabharata and Ramayana, if you can narrate some instances where you see that, okay, there have been something which has been added, which was probably not the way it was written in the Valmiki Ramayana or in the original text of Mahabharata, but has been accumulated by the people side from their own retelling of the story side of point of view. So certain things which added to the creation of myth in the mythology. So your views on that.
So thank you. Namaste, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna, all of you. I always talk about itihas anyways. I keep reiterating the definition of it. And I 100% agree with Nilesh ji that it is not even a debate. The reason that we keep debating and debating and debating is because we just don't understand that our own rishis have very clearly called only 2 texts as itihas. Nothing else. Even Purans are called Purans. They are not called itihas. They have very clearly said that this is itihas. What? Ramayana and Mahabharata. Purva Vruttam Kathayuktam, that is itihas, what has happened in the past and has been narrated in Katha format. So there might be aspects of metaphorical, mystical stuff, but the core, as Nilesh ji said is absolutely there. Now, I also want to distinguish on the retelling aspect of it itself, right? One is retelling, or what Nilesh ji was saying, interpolations, additions, whatever, to Valmiki Ramayana and Vedvyas ji's Mahabharata. Okay. That, of course, as he said, 200, 300 years के बाद वो बंद हो गया होगा. But to that core story which Vedvyas ji said and Valmiki ji said, that is one aspect. Okay. वो versions में अलग होगा. The other aspect is retelling, reimagination, right? That to me is a complete different genre in itself. That cannot be confused by itihas. In the sense, if somebody is saying that, okay, Valmiki ji has said whatever, but now I am taking this and telling it in one more way, and it is as valid as Valmiki Ramayana, it is not. Full stop. Okay. Is it your literary work? Yes. Is it your attempt to see the story in a certain way? Yes. But is it itihas? No. Does it mean that you have the creative liberty to work off the characters of itihas? Yes. But can you claim you are retelling Ramayana or Mahabharata? No. Right? I think as people in this sector, we need to have that much honesty to accept that, yes, this is the work which I am talking about is from Valmiki Ramayana and the other not. Now I'll tell you small things and certain big things which you mentioned, right? So chotu things which get added. Valmiki Ramayana mein, there is this thing of Lakshman Rekha. ठीक है? We all know Lakshman Rekha कि उसके बाहर सीता जी नहीं जा सकते. Valmiki Ramayana has nothing like Lakshman Rekha. Okay, absolutely. There is no Lakshman Rekha, this actual Lakshman Rekha being drawn. Because of which it gets that mystical, mythical thing कि ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? ये तो unscientific है. Right? ऐसा कैसा तुम draw कर सकते हो? कुछ नहीं draw हुआ है. But a rekha has been broken. What is that rekha which has been broken? The tolerance. The rekha of tolerance of Lakshman because of the words of Sita ji. And he says, may the Vanadevtas protect you, I'm going. But there is no drawing of the line. The drawing of the line actually explicitly comes, you know where? In Krittiba's Ojha Ramayana, which is the West Bengal mein jo likha gaya. But is that Valmiki Ramayana? No. Right? But eventually, when things get, when this distinction between Valmiki Ramayana versus its various retellings, not Valmiki Ramayana, but with the creative liberty which the authors take, that confusion starts to happen. Also, this is not to say that it is happening now. Okay? We have so many Sanskrit Natyakars who have done that as well. But again, they don't call it Valmiki Ramayana. They call it their own versions. Okay? They had that much honesty. And I'll tell you a bigger one in Ramayana, and I'll stop with that. Okay. You all have heard the story of Ahalya. क्या हुआ अहल्या की स्टोरी में? बेचारी लेडी, शी वॉज मिसट्रीटेड. एक तो इंद्र ने फायदा उठाया झूठ बोल के, है ना? और उसके बाद क्या हुआ? पति ने छोड़ दिया. उसकी कोई गलती भी नहीं थी, कोई भी गलती नहीं थी, फिर भी पति ने छोड़ दिया. और फिर छोटे से श्री राम, अभी हमारे लिए भगवान है इसलिए अलग बात है, ठीक है, पर छोटा से श्री राम आते हैं और वो पत्थर बन गई लेडी है, उसको पाँव लगाते हैं. ठीक है? हाउ अनफेयर, राइट? That is what we have always heard. But do you know this story is not from Valmiki Ramayana? And do you know what Valmiki Ramayana says about this story? It is fascinating because when I read that story, when I started my research, I was like, why has this Bakwas story been told to us for so long? Jabki Valmiki Ramayana has a completely different story. Valmiki Ramayana mein, Indra comes. But Ahalya knows this is Indra. It clearly says, Sahastraksham Vignaya. Knowing this is Indra, what happens? Mati Chakara Durmedhe Devaraja Kutuhalat. There is a lapse of judgment. Why? Devaraj, he is desiring me. Okay? He is desiring me. Hence, there is a lapse of judgment. And she agrees. She consents for the Sambandha. Okay, she consents for the Sambandha. And then she's like, now I'm Santushta, now you go and protect yourself from my Pati Gautam and myself. Okay? But Gautam comes, he punishes Indra. Now that's the other thing. They say Indra को कुछ नहीं किया. He actually tells Indra what कि वो नपुंसक बन जाओ. ये बोलते हैं उसको, और इनको बोलते हैं कि वाताहार निराहार बिना खाए बन जाए, तुम यहीं रहो इस आश्रम में और तपस्या करो. There is no पत्थर वत्थर का business. Okay, there is no pathar business. She's sitting there and doing tapasya, and he says, when Ram comes, that is when your tapasya will end. When Ram and Lakshman come, this is the even more beautiful part. Okay, जब विश्वामित्र बोलते हैं कि ये अहल्या का आश्रम है, कैसी है वो? देवरूपिणी तेजस्विनी. That is Ahalya. They both enter, they go and touch her feet. No pathar touching. They go and touch her feet. उसके पाय पड़ते हैं. Why? Because तेजस्विनी तपस्या से उन्होंने अपना सारा इंद्रिय निग्रह किया है. She is like a rishika, no? That is what has happened to other rishis also. They had so many falls, and then they achieved greatness. So did she. And for this, what do we say? Bichari abala nariyan, सबके साथ अत्याचार होता है. No, what can be more equal than this, right? And this is the story of Ahalya from Valmiki Ramayana. अब ये क्यों नहीं बताते? सोचो, this is what sometimes the additions does, and that is why you should know history for what it is. Thank you.
Yes, and I completely agree there, because I think we don't have the courage in us to handle those stories, honestly, because except where Ahilya is actually accepting her sexuality and she consents. This whole story being warped completely, that as if she is a warning for infidelity, got twisted through the years. The original story is much more mature. It is the story of the relationship between husband and wife. Why is Gautam angry? You know, Gautam is made the villain, sort of a. Yeah. It is like a. He is angry because he is betrayed. He is the victim. He is angry about an infidel wife. But she also has been given a chance to talk. Like the very fact that the act was a consensual act. It was not rape. It was not. She was not swindled. She was not fooled. There was no deception. She recognizes Indra and she goes ahead. Now, this particular decision of Ahilya, she has the courage to even, she knows if that is a mistake, whatever, it is a decision and she's ready to go on with it. That is the greatness of Ahilya. And the fact that, as she says, there is no pathar. It is, the whole thing is, she actually says it's like rarefied air. She goes into spiritualism. The whole fact, I think the problem is that it's reading between the lines. This story is, I think the similar story with, like Ahilya, is also Shakuntala. If you see Shakuntala's story, we all know Shakuntala's story as the Kalidas version. But we don't know the original Shakuntala story. She was definitely a more brave, feisty, strong-willed lady who decided that she comes to know that she's married, she has a relationship, the Gandharva marriage with Dushyant. She realizes after a point that he's not going to come back. She decides to have a child. She realizes she's pregnant. She realizes to have a child on her own. I think she's definitely the first single mother. And she goes ahead. She has a child. When the child is about 12 years old, the son asks, "Who is my father?" And that is the time she says, "Okay, let me introduce you to your father." That is the right of the son for the father. That is how the story goes. She is not pining away, or she is no damsel in distress. This whole thing of fish and that ring and all is all drama. Of course, it's beautiful Kalidas's poem. But the original Shakuntala story, will we be able to handle it? You know, that is what I was trying to say about feminism. I think originally these ladies were extremely strong, very willful. The whole thing part was, it was all their choice, their decision. That has got twisted. And it had got twisted through patriarchy, and, you know, the whole thing it became a completely misogynistic point of view, where it was everything. Sita becomes a reminder. Ahilya becomes a reminder. So the whole thing of tarnishing it either black or white, we just forgot the grays.
That is where I was coming to, since we are talking about, and if you see on the stage too, there are two females and one male, and on the audience too, we are seeing a good representation of female. And you have very well said it, both of you, and you have written a number of books on the forgotten or less talked about women in the Indian epic, and how they are let's say, misrepresented, or over the period of time when the society changed and the way of retelling of the story came towards mainly towards the men side of it, let's say they twisted it on their own way. But from your perspective, where you have, let's say, studied in length various women in the Indian epic, if we draw some parallels from the women who existed and those times versus the issues that women face now, have we progressed when we say the progress in the society, or have we actually gone back? Or we have become more regressive in terms of the representation of the women in the society, in the workforce, in the households, everywhere, every different sphere of life? And what are some of the lessons that we can draw from the women in the past? When I say past, the main cast, the Ahilya, Sita that we have talked about, right? And some of the lessons that we can draw for the women in the current society. So what are your take on that?
It's a very complicated question and a very long question, but okay, I'll try to kind of make it a little.
Have we actually gone ahead? Or we have got
The
back?
whole thing is, I think, first and foremost, when we say the whole reverence which has come, Ahilya, Sita, we have deified them. Honestly, we have deified them, and actually the original stories were humanized stories. They were stories about the qualities, the follies, the faults, and we were supposed to understand those stories and think, not judge. Unfortunately, I think the women became the first victim of judgment. Whether it's Ahilya or Sita, or even Shakuntala, or Menka, if you see all of them, very fast, Ahilya from a devoted wife becomes a promiscuous woman, becomes a symbol of infidelity. And she will not get redemption unless she repents. This became the narrative. This was not the original narrative. So what I'm trying to say, I think honestly, those women, those times, I'm talking about the very, very early Vedic age, they definitely enjoyed more personal freedom than we do now. I mean, you see Satyavati, you see Kunti, you see Draupadi, and you see the arc. See what Satyavati did and see what Kunti did in the same scenario, see what happened to Draupadi. You come to know the societal change there and then. So I think this was in the span of Mahabharata, we are talking about 3 women. But I think if you're honestly asking me, I think those, the earlier one, the Rishikas, this whole concept of, if you hear the arguments between Gargi and all, I mean, this entire freedom of expression, this entire courage to have a debate, the egalitarian, the democracy, the democratic feelings of debate, I mean, this was encouraged right from the beginning. And somehow or the others, very, very, very unfortunately, that got sort of buried in the heft of whatever, time, socio-political ethos or whatever. But I think things did change for the worse. And I think what I'm trying to do is, these are the stories which have been, I'm not really retelling the stories. I'm not even reimagining the stories. What I'm trying to show the original source of these stories, because somehow or the other, the stories have got completely blurred.
Okay. Let us change the track a bit and let us talk about from an engineer who is sitting on the dais and has actually seen chronologically the sequence of events are when these events actually happen. That also poses certain times this dilemma in our minds that when we talk about epics or when we talk about religion as such, is it a matter of belief? Or can we logically define it? Right? So certain thing what Amy has talked about, Lakshman Rekha, are certain symbols or rituals are the symbols that are there in our text. Should we believe it as it is and not question it? This is generally speaking from the younger lot that we have currently, who want to question everything and then try to decipher and understand it from their own perspective and the way they understand things. So is it a matter of more belief that nahi aankh band karke whatever is given that we have to just believe and not question? Or is it logical and can we derive it logically? So chronologically, how do you explain this, sir?
So two types of question. One is chronology. So when we are talking of Ramayana or Mahabharata, we had another session, so I'll not just take that time and repeat it. And during the bedtime, you can watch my videos for that, okay? But chronologically, when we are talking of Mahabharata, I'm asserting that we are referring to about 7,500 years ago. When we are talking of Ramayana, we are referring to more than 14,000 years ago. But about the belief and the factual information, I would say I was lucky that I could study the world religions, the world civilizations, different different civilizations, cultures, whatever it is. And I would say both the factual data as well as mythology coexist. Not mythology, I mean the belief system, you know, what we believe. It coexists. But I will tell you, the story that is told to us is exactly the opposite of what is reality. Let's say just in a statistical way, 95 and 5%, you know, that's typical standard confidence interval level. I would say if you take Abrahamic religions and the story that is told there, for example, most of you would have never heard Indian mythology, everyone has heard. How many of you have heard of Christian mythology and Islamic mythology? Think again. Okay? Norse mythology, anything that is gone except the Indian culture, they are all mythologies. Okay, but there is no Christian mythology and Islamic mythology. But as to the belief and factual, it exists in all cultures, including Hinduism. But if you have to go by the percentage, especially in the ancient times, now I think judgments are clouded and the postmodernism has created more nonsense. But if you want to say factual and belief, in a Sanatana culture, I would say factual is 95%, there is a 5% belief element. In Abrahamic religions, it's exactly the opposite. There is a 5% factual, 95% is just a tower of fables. Thank you.
Can I add to that? So I will just, I will try to respond to the second part of the question that you asked, that do we have to blindly believe or can we ask questions, right? Are you people aware with Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita में क्या हो रहा है? पूरा question answers ही हो रहा है, ठीक है? Even after Krishna has shown the Vishwarupa, Arjuna is still asking questions. And even after doing all this and Krishna telling him that I am Bhagwan, in the 18th chapter, no, there is a very interesting shloka. ठीक है? Krishna says, I have told you all this. ठीक है? I have explained to you Karma Siddhanta, I have explained to you Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, this, that, all that I have told you. Now, Yatha Ichhasi Tatha Kuru. Do what you think you want to do, what you think is right. Our Bhagwans are also not telling us ki aag band karke mano. They are saying question, because that is when the realization can come, right? What does the Sanatan Dharma say? What is our goal of life? Why is it that this Atma and the Prakriti Sanyoga happens? For Bhoga and Apavarga, Bhoga obviously is to enjoy the life, okay, whatever the life is, and to move beyond that, which is Apavarga. The movement beyond will not happen until and unless you actually understand it. It will not happen through blind belief. Okay, so, okay, that doesn't mean that, the question then is not about whether we should question or not. Yes, you should obviously question. The point is, how should you question? Okay. Is your questioning to dismiss something? Arey hum dikha denge kya sab galat hai? That is one way of questioning. The other way is, let me understand why this is happening. It has been going on for so long. People are learning something out of it. Kuch hai kya? Let me understand it and then take it to the next level, right? So it is not about whether. Of course you should, right? Do hi buddhi khulegi. But how? That is more important. Thank
Is
you.
it more about being curious to know something, or this is just to say something that, okay, this is not that something that I'm going to believe, or
See,
you want to disprove something?
Any kind of learning will only happen with jigyasa. Okay? And with an aspect of Shraddha also. Something has lasted for so long. Is it possible that something that is completely bakwas can last for so long? Kuch to hona chahiye tha na? Something would have happened. But it has lasted for so long. It has worked for so many people. There must definitely be something to it. I am not saying accept everything that is pirosod to you. No, aisa nahi hai. ठीक है? There might be things which make sense today. There might be things which served a purpose before. It is making no sense to you. Doesn't matter. Keep it aside. Take what makes sense and go ahead, right? But that taking what makes sense will not happen if your approach itself is only to dismiss and discount without jigyasa or wanting to learn. So it is about, again, आप dismiss कर दोगे, किसी को नुकसान नहीं होने वाला, आप ही को होने वाला है. ठीक है, तो इट इज़ अ इंडिविजुअल जर्नी एट द एंड ऑफ द डे. द होल बिलीफ श्रद्धा इज एन इंडिविजुअल जर्नी. आपको क्या करना है, घूम फिर के बड़े बड़े साइंटिस्ट लोग भी आते हैं ना बिलीफ पे. वाई? बिकॉज सी, अच्छा लेट्स थिंक लॉजिकली. ठीक है, people here might be, some might be believers, some might be believing certain sampradayas, some might be nirishwarvadis. All of that is okay. But is there one person who can put his hand up and say, my life is fully under my control? Any one person, fully under my control. So, if life is not in our control, not fully in our control, of course, a part of it we have to work hard, then in whose control? See? So lovely, right? A Nirishwarvadi will say, no, it is random. Somebody else will say it is Bhagya. This bacha is saying it is Bhagwan. You call it whatever, but there is definitely one entity which is not in your control, right? Now, what is that entity? Clearly, it is larger than you. Now, how you want to believe, what you want to believe is a different thing. But if you think even logically, there is clearly something beyond you, right? So that is what the logic will tell you. Why deny it?
Very true.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll open the floor for the questions. Please keep the questions short and to the point, and then we will take it. Yes.
And also you may want to say the question, who is it for? Keep it short and just specify.
Can we,
You want to ask? Acha, okay. So my question is to Ami actually. We would like to understand, about Gandhari as a character, as a mother specifically, because the story says कि उन्होंने आँखों पे पट्टी बांध ली, and when she opens the patti, Duryodhana की body लोहे की हो गई. So what exactly was that? Because many a times she comes as a negative character, and many a times it's a positive. What exactly it is?
So Gandhari, पहले तो ये उन्होंने पट्टी खोला और उसका शरीर लोहे का हो गया. All that is बकवास. ठीक है. Gandhari is one person who knows on whose side dharma is clearly. Okay. That is why she does not even wish good luck to Duryodhan. She's been one person who's been saying that this war shouldn't happen. Okay. All that is there. So is she negative? Absolutely not. But there is something very interesting that happens in the end. I'll just say that and I'll leave it to you to see what you want to make of it, right? So after the war ends, Gandhari was expecting this outcome. Okay? But for a mother to lose all her kids, right? To see all her bahus, both sides, crying, repenting over all the loss. उनकी बेटी है दुशाला, उसका पति गुजर गया है, इतना खून खराबा, इतना रो रहा है वो. So when she meets Krishna, she says, Krishna, you could have stopped it. You didn't. This is all your fault. So now मैं आपको श्राप देती हूँ कि आपके परिवार भी एक दूसरे को मार के खत्म कर देंगे. ठीक है? Krishna understands her pain, but he says something very nice or very forceful. He says, Ma, I accept your shrap. But you know what? Not for the reason that you are telling me. The Yadavas will anyways kill themselves. Why? Because they've become all this ahankari, they have degraded, all that is fine. But आप ये जो मेरे पे आप ये बोल रहे हो ना कि ये सब मेरे कारण हुआ है, that is probably not right. Because did you do what you were supposed to do? There is no answer given. But he asked that question. Because here, there is one thing which we need to ask ourselves as parents as well, right? She bandhod that patti. A lot of places they'll say because she wanted to show her anger and all. That is not what Vedvyaji says. Vedvyaji actually says it very positively, that she doesn't want to experience what her husband doesn't experience, right? So it is with a very proper, positive bhav, she's tying that on her eyes. But the question is, would that not have interfered with raising of the kids, right? That thing where you say no to the child has to happen pehle hi, not afterwards. Again, does Vedvyas ji ever say anything bad about Gandhari? No. Sorry. Absolutely not. Okay. But Krishna leaves this open-ended. That did you do?
I think. No, I just wanted to expand on what she said, because she said something about negative. I think that is exactly what makes her character so fascinating. Because there is no white and black. I mean, Gandhari is actually the other side of, you can call it bad parenting, bad motherhood, bad mother. You know, this whole thing of, again, glorifying motherhood. I think Gandhari is a stark example of a bad mother. Very simply put.
Yeah.
So she might be the devoted wife. Okay. But I think even as a wife, there she sort of sucks. Because if her husband is blind, she should have been double alert to be his guide. She's his partner. She's his partner. If he is blind, she is supposed to be his eyes. She does not do that. She sort of blind. You know, this whole thing of detachment from marriage, from a partner, from her responsibilities of a mother having 100 children. The only thing is that she wants an heir. That definitely is very fierce in her. She wants, I mean, her biggest, if Dhritarashtra has his disappointments, so does she. And Duryodhan is the distillation of this twin disappointments. Is not, you know, so each one is responsible for the war, you know. So there's no negative or positive. Everyone has, as I said, the grays are very, very important in the Mahabharata because everyone have contributed to the war. Everyone, each and every character, starting from Bhishma and Satyavati. It starts from there. Actually, starts from Devyani and Yayati. I mean, you can very well say that. But each one, you know, it's shown, it's like a drama. That is the drama, you know, where each one contributes to the culmination of that bloody war. So Gandhari is actually she is such a anti-heroine, if you can actually call her anti, but still she is so great. I mean, this whole thing of being a mother of the Kauravas, that huge responsibility that she is the mother of the Kauravas and the curse of being the mother, you know. So, I mean, especially when you see her against Kunti, where Kunti has nothing. She is actually a uncrowned queen. She was a queen, but she never had a crown on her head. And then you see Gandhari, who had everything, but nothing. So I think...
mentioned that Valmiki Ramayana have been altered throughout the history, and that's not actually what been told to us.
None of us said that. None of us said that.
No. Valmiki Ramayana is the true story given to us, but it has been interpreted in different ways and then given to the next generations to come. So let's say according to Valmiki Ramayana, there was infidelity happened from Ahilya and all that thing. So do you think the alteration of that story was to not promote infidelity to the next generation? So do you think interpretation is actually doing good by not promoting things that shouldn't?
Which infidelity are you talking about? Ahilya's?
Ahilya's infidelity and other
No,
examples.
because infidelity, they takes 3 people involved, right? The husband, the cuckold is there. But the... Lekin, the person who is condemned is only the woman. Neither Indra or Gautam are condemned for their role in the infidelity. So the story is actually, look into your marriages. It is actually a beautiful story of a husband-wife relationship.
Not just to specific that story, but all the entire Itihasa literature, the Ramayana, Mahabharata. She gave a partial definition. I mean, she knows the whole definition, just the time to manage the time, which is say, Dharmartha Kama Mokshanam Upadesham Samanvitam Purvavrittam Kathayuktam Itihasam Prachakshate. Okay, it is based on a historical event told in a katha form, in an entertaining form, something you can retain, and that serves as a guidebook for us to understand, learn, know more, achieve about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. If you just quickly take the business world, the legal world, okay, and a medicine, just for the time limit, but it's apply everywhere. We use lots of case studies. So what the idea is, the case study, certain story is given, they modify some of the things. It is given for you to think, and certain questions are asked. Some groups may answer the same question in a different way, but in a very logical fashion, and still they get A+ grades, both parties. So the idea behind this is, just like we are discussing and some different way of looking at it, the idea is you can look at it different way, but basically this is a training for our body, for our mind, and for our intellect, for Sharira, Mana, Buddhi. So there are tons of lessons from each story. Depending on our level of intellect, we are going to derive certain things, and the idea is to improve our intellect. So this is basically, that's why today also we read it and we debate about it like a family gossip.
I'm going to
Family
still
gossip, my
answer your
family
question.
problem.
I'm going to still answer your question, the part which you asked about, whether they were trying to not promote infidelity or anything like that. I think it's a little more nuanced to there, okay? Because I know even today, some people who actually know the Valmiki Ramayana, okay? ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं मालूम है इसलिए वो कहानी बता रहे हैं. मालूम है, they know the actual story. But उनको लगता है, how do we say this? Because why? Ahalya is amongst the Panchakanya, right? So how can we say that she accepted? She cannot accept. She'll become a bad person, right? And if we are saying that it was okay for her to accept, okay, still she is a Panchakanya, then everybody will think it is acceptable. So you are right in that. However, I think for a person to think like that and say only what that person thinks is right is infantilizing the audience. To say that they will not understand. और हम अहल्या की ये बात बताएंगे तो वो लोग भी जाके बाहर सोने लगेंगे. That is too much to expect, ना? ऐसे करते नहीं हैं लोग. Of course, जिसको बुरा लेना है वो फिर भी बुरा ही लेंगे. ठीक है? But also what happens ना? People start narrating stories based on what they think is the value system of that time. So as you become more orthodox, you go through that. So, and our society is so ancient. All this is bound to happen. The thing is, today, when people have started asking questions and given this a very negative thing, where they'll take the story of Ahalya and say, अच्छा जब तक श्रद्धा है ना, तब तक इसे देखो कितना उद्धार कर दिया, ठीक है? उद्धार कर दिया. आपको विश्वास है, that's fine. But now when people are asking logically कि अरे क्या उद्धार कर दिया, उसने पाप क्या किया था कि उद्धार करना पड़ा, right? Then all this is coming and women are like, अच्छा देखो हमारे साथ तो ऐसे ही होता है. Then your Hindu dharma is only bad. आपका तो स्त्री द्वेषी है because देखो हमेशा से ऐसे होता आ रहा है. नहीं, हमेशा से नहीं होता आ रहा है. उसमें तो ऐसा है. So this is actually the time to now set the correct narrative based on what we have in the Itihas. Thank you.
May I say even Daityas and Danavas are also demonized in those stories, in the epics?
See, I'll go back to the chapter called Devasuri Sampat in Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Why are Devta? So what is the key difference that we are told in Devtas and Danavas? Going by, say, the Pauranic story, they both have the same father. ठीक है? कश्यप ऋषि, एक पत्नी है अदिति, जिसके बच्चे देव कहे गए, आदित्य कहे गए, जिसमें वो सारे भगवान आ जाते हैं, इंद्र वगैरह. और दिति, जो उनकी दूसरी पत्नी है, उनके बच्चे दैत्य कहे गए. What is the key difference between them? The key difference is in the gunas. ठीक है? The Daityas are very, very materialistic. That is that Asuri Sampat which they have, that qualities. ठीक है? Whereas the Devatas are more sattva, sattvic, sattva-guni. That is the key difference. फिर when the stories start getting told and retold and stuff, तो वो उस तरीके से आता है. But the reason for demonizing, so to say, or saying that we don't have to literally take it as a tribe और उनके साथ बुरा कहा गया. That is not the... This whole lens of seeing these things as tribes and class struggle and all that actually demeans these beautiful stories we have. Because there's something beautiful Nilesh ji said. Dharma artha kama mokshanam upadesham samanitam. These are meant for us to learn lessons of life, right? That aspect is forgotten and we make it a class struggle, tribe struggle, that whole postmodernist lens which is put on this, right? What do we have to learn from this? That Baba, if you, as I was saying yesterday, if you take your any decision based on kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mad, matsarya, impulsively, ये अच्छा लगता है, फलाना ठिकाना, you are going to make wrong decisions. You have to take decisions how? Objectively. How will the objectivity come? By developing the sattvic guna, by developing detachment, by controlling your mind. That is key, right? Controlling your mind is key. That is the theme which the epics are telling us do. But हमने क्या कर दिया? ये उसके साथ लड़ रहा है, ये उसके साथ लड़ रहा है, इसके साथ बेचारे के साथ अत्याचार हुआ, ये तो खराबी है, सब वैसा है, ये तो स्त्री द्वेषी है, ये तो जातिवादी है, ये सब हो गया. हमारा दृष्टिकोण ही बदल गया इन वस्तुओं को देखने का.
खराब माँ के बच्चे खराब ही रहेंगे ऐसा. I mean, Daityas can have a person who can
Sir, again,
not be...
you are completely understanding this wrong. Who said Diti is a bad mother? I didn't say that. I said, in fact, they're coming from सेम फादर एंड दिति एंड अदिति. दिति बुरी है ऐसा सब मैंने नहीं कहा. मैंने कहा दैत्य. अगेन यू डोंट हैव टू टेक दिस लिटरली, राइट? जो पौराणिक स्टोरीज यू डोंट टेक देम लिटरली. एक ही फादर है, बिकॉज द स्टोरी एक्चुअली गोज ही हैज मेनी अदर वाइफ्स. एक से पक्षी आते हैं, एक से सांप आता है, एक से फलाना आता है, एक से ढिकाना आता है, right? So the point is, who are called the Daityas? This Devasur Sangram, what does it mean? The Devasur Sangram is this thing only, where the materialistic thing, whereas mother control, that is going on, and the Devatas have to win to ensure the continuation and sustainability. If you go the Daitya way, I know there are very famous books called Asura way and somehow that is being promoted. But no, the Shastras tell us don't go the Asura way, because the Asura way will lead you to destruction. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. That is the idea. So please don't take it as one माँ, उसके बच्चे, real people, वो सारे बुरे ही कहेंगे हैं. ऐसा नहीं है. इनफैक्ट उन स्टोरीज में भी प्रहलाद कौन है? उसको तो अच्छा ही बताया है. दैट इज वॉट इट इज बीइंग टोल्ड ऑल्सो, दैट यू डोंट, there will be janma sanskaras, wo jane do, but there are other things as well, and you are not condemned to that life forever. If you do manah control, you can do it. But how to do manah control? Arjun is also asking, chanchala hi manah Krishna, very difficult. This mind is very wavering. How to control it? Krishna says asanshayam mahabaho. Yes, definitely very difficult. He's not saying are kya bol raha. He says definitely very difficult. How to do? How to do? How to do? What is Krishna saying? Huh? No, what is the shloka? Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagena tu grahyate. Abhyas. It is only through practice. You will falter. But again, that is the only way to get out of that chakra of sukha and dukha. That is what these epics are meant to teach. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. My name is Ashish Bhardwaj, and my question is for all of you. First, I would like to say thank you to allow us to ask some questions. And my question is, my question is that, as you know, and we also know that lots of Mahabharata, lots of Ramayana, even the Gitas are available in the market. Sorry. So, which one you recommend so that we can follow to this book and we get exactly the details what exactly we need it? Not the interpretation or the wrong interpretation we required. So thanks.
Okay. They will give some additional answers, but start with the anyone that you have or anything that you can find. The second part, don't stop with one book or one translation. Thank you.
I will say look for Valmiki Ramayana and Vedvyas Rachit Mahabharat. A lot of this are freely available. आज तो जो English का translation है वाल्मीकि रामायण और वेदव्यास जी का, विवेक देब्रॉय जी has done in English. ठीक है? रामायण is in 3 volumes, Mahabharata is in 10 volumes. हिंदी में चाहिए तो गीता प्रेस is also good, even though it is not on critical edition, it's very good. It has Sanskrit as well as Hindi. Again 6 volumes of Mahabharat and 2 volumes of Ramayana. उसके अलावा राजा गोपालाचारी का जो abridged version है, ठीक है? वो भी अच्छा है. For both of this. हिंदी में तेरे सातवड़ेकर गुरुजी, उनका जो हिंदी translation है, that is very good. And the series that I have written, Mahabharata Unraveled 1 and 2 and Ramayana Unraveled, I have it with actually references given where it is coming from. So those who have some understanding can probably pick it up, but I would love it even more if eventually you read the original for what it is. Thank you.
Just one correction in case, because she added something. In case you thought read any Ramayana, I didn't mean that. Valmiki Ramayana, Vyasa's Mahabharata, but in terms of translation, which language, because this question is a frequently asked question. But usually, and I don't mean about you, but usually, but you included, by the way, usually people ask this question and they don't do anything after that. So therefore, I'm saying pick the one, start there, just don't stop with one translation. Go through multiple ones, again sticking to Valmiki Ramayana, Vyasa's Mahabharata, and you will have a blast.
Yeah, I think it's best you read the original text, because then you come to know the discrepancies, how it has actually changed. So I think, as he said very correctly, no one reads the original text. So after reading everything, go back to the original text and see how it has been changed.
I'm just going to add one last point. Also, read with an open mind. ठीक है? That is very important, because नहीं तो क्या होता है ना, हम लोग यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं, आपने सुना, ठीक है, कि हाँ हाँ ये पढ़ना है, ये पढ़ना है. द अदर डे सम यंग बच्चा, I mean your age, he came to me and he's like, ma'am, I started reading Valmiki Ramayana based on what you were telling me, but it has so much ashleelta. I'm like, what do you mean ashleelta? Because see, at those times, if you read a lot of physical descriptions, right, they are very physical descriptions and they're very vivid. ठीक है? So they're like, अरे ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया? सीता माँ का ऐसा कैसा description कर दिया? This is so dirty. No, it's not. Kama is one of the purusharthas, right? It is how the beauty was described. So keep an open mind about some of these things. You might read a few things which will be like, अरे मेरे को तो ऐसे लगता था, इसमें तो ऐसे बोल दिया है, ठीक है? And you'll be like, अरे बाप रे, I have to defend it. No, you don't. You don't have to defend anything. You don't have to, how do I say, start thinking, अरे बाप रे ये क्या है? Accept it. Don't judge it. Learn from it.
I know we are going over time quickly, not just to relate it to your question, but similar frequently asked questions like Mahabharat नहीं, Bhagavad Gita कौन सी पढ़े वगैरह. The challenge I see, I mean not just for you, but you are the guinea pig since you asked the question, is that actually जिसको पढ़ना है ना, ये प्रश्न भी नहीं पूछेगा. आजकल का ज़माना में क्या डिफ़िकल्ट है, गूगल में जाओ, भगवद गीता टाइप करो, आपको मिल जाते हैं. इन्होंने बोला कि अच्छा नीलेश जी valmikiramayana.net, valmikiramayana.iit.kharagpur.in, जिसको पढ़ना है उसको 50 महाभारत मिल जाएंगे, मीन्स सेम बुक का सारा फ्री पे ट्रांसलेशन दिस एंड दैट. बेसिकली भीमसेन जोशी जी को सिंगिंग सीखना था तो वो किसी को जाके पूछा नहीं कि मैं भाग के जाऊँ क्या घर से. ही वेंट. ओके, थैंक यू.
Hello. Ma'am,
Hey, we are done with the questions. Now we
the
are.
last.
Make it short. Make it short.
Thank you. Actually, my question was about Dushala. I mean, she should be more highlighted, I think, being the only sister of Kauravas. Why is she not mentioned anywhere? Means, I don't see any text or anyone talking about her. What happened to her?
Why just her?
I don't know, ma'am. I just...
Why not anybody else? Why not the fifth brother of Duryodhan?
Yeah.
Right? Why
How
not
many
the
brothers is
other
named?
wife of Sahadev?
Right, because about Dushala, I was trying to write something about her.
So this is for your personal gain. You are saying Ved Vyas you should have written.
No. It is not.
Yeah, देखो, just there is a limitation to how much can be written, no?
Yeah.
Right? What will they focus on? The core story and people who are key to that core story. आप जब picture देखने जाते हो, तो यहाँ हर एक character को equal ये मिलता है. There is somebody who just comes and gives the chai. Will you say उस चाय वाले के जीवन के बारे में कुछ नहीं बताया? Right? So understand this. It is not as if Ved Vyas is trying to ignore anybody or not do this. अकेली बहन है इसलिए लिखना चाहिए. उनके मन में ये सारा post modern ये नहीं था कि मैं इसमें feminism घुसाऊंगा, मैं उसमें masculinity घुसाऊंगा. ऐसे वो नहीं सोच रहे हैं. वो जो हुआ है वो बता रहे हैं. तो जो core characters है उनका वो बताएंगे. It is as simple as that. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
So the question should be उनके बारे में है क्या versus why has he not written? Right?
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
No, but I'll tell you about, if you're asking about Dushala, out of the one sister out of 9,900 brothers, I think if you really want to imagine it, imagine one sister among all those brothers. Secondly, it could be that she wanted a daughter. I mean, all these points can, if you're really curious and if you want to answer your imagination, and she has an importance. Her husband is Jaya, who is, again, responsible for the war. So I think she might not be visibly there, there's no visibility of her, but her husband definitely is one of the powerful characters.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, ma'am.
And just wait, that is the next title probably coming from Kavita ma'am. So first finish the first 8 one that she has written about the not so much explored women in our text. And Dushala is probably the next topic that she has
Actually, on
given you in the-
Dushala, there is actually a piece given, and her strength comes out after the war. Okay? After the war, when the Ashwamedha happens, and all the husbands have died, right? So there she actually plays a role. Now, why are you asking this question? Because मालूम नहीं है ना? You just asked. तुमने पढ़ा महाभारत और फिर पूछा नहीं.
See, ma'am, actually I had read that Dushala's son also dies and she has lost everything almost.
Everybody has lost everything.
Actually,
Everybody has lost
what
everything.
What is Draupadi? Draupadi loses, I think except for her husband, she loses her brothers, she loses her father, she loses her sons, her 5 sons. Subhadra, I mean all of them. Hidimbi loses her son, though she's never a sort of a unacknowledged wife. She is only there to be the mother of Ghatotkacha, you know. I mean, her tragedy is also, so the women's tragedy is huge. I mean, each woman, if you take after the war, so that is what, in the end, what is the land which, they are the kings of weeping widows. And, you know,
Okay, so
motherless son.
we can resolve our
Okay, yes, sure.
issues after the session offline.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I understand there are many more questions in your mind. That is what is the curiosity about the Indian mythology. Sorry to use the wrong word, but about our epics. We'll continue this discussion. Thank you very much, all the eminent panelists. And thank you again once.
Thank you, guests, and thank you, audience, for joining us. Thank you.